We're talking with Brant who thinks that the H123 from McKinsey is not so much useful anymore.
Well, so I think actually if you go back to the McKinsey version, it still is useful. The problem is that the innovation community has actually redefined it. So back when it first came out, H1, H2, H3 referred to growth. When are you going to see growth from different initiatives? Unfortunately, the innovation people, the innovation consultants, have changed that into being how long it takes you to create a certain style, a certain type of innovation. And I think that that's actually not predictable. And so I think that people planning to do breakthrough innovation that's going to fall into H3 and be 5 years or later is not how innovation works. And so I think it's kind of got people twisted around the wrong ideas.
So let's innovate in 3 years. That's not the way to go. You have to innovate now.
You have to start now to see any return that you're going to get, right? But I want people to think about where is their uncertainty, and so how much uncertainty is in the future in terms of where your revenue or growth is going to come from. And then I'm going to create any program or multiple programs or even invest in the startup world. I'm going to take a number of initiatives in order to try to get to that number that I need to get to 3 years from now, 4 years from now, 5 years from now. But yeah, I have to start today, and it's not going to come from some eureka moment.
So what is it going to come from? What's the way to go now?
It's going to come from a combination of different things. You're going to take existing products and you're going to tweak them and go after a different market segment. You're going to try to go after maybe a developing country that might take 5 years down the road, and so that's an H3. It could be going out and doing technology scouting and startup scouting and then doing some ideation on how you might be able to apply that technology that'll have a big impact in the future. So I think all of those activities are important. But I think that what we need to get focused back onto is, number one, when do I need this growth by, and what are the different ways that I might be able to achieve that growth? And number two, how are we going to create value for fellow human beings? And that's actually going to determine the technology that we need and the products that we need and the services that we need. So we focus on creating value instead of all of the business activities. That's actually what's going to result in innovative solutions and also with growth.
Is that a lot different from a few years ago, or what's different?
I think that in the past, a lot of the new growth came from new invention, right? And so R&D companies do need to invest in things that they can invent the future. That stuff often comes from large company R&D. But most companies actually aren't technology companies. Most companies aren't reliant on real R&D in order to figure out where their new growth is coming from. So those that can continue to invent, and then we need to have innovation practices which goes and validates that new invention has a market. We're not going to believe it has a market just because it was invented, right? And those companies that are not focused on R&D can start working on, understanding their customers deeply and running experiments to try to figure out how they might tweak existing business models or products or invent new products or business models that create value in the world and result in future growth.
So that would be like small inventions, innovations that are very viable.
I don't even think that they don't have to be small. I don't think that we can actually predict whether they're small or big. I think what we need to do is get rid of the hubris that we can, smart people can predict the future. We can't.
So also the tweaks can be big.
The tweaks might end up big. We don't know until we actually start getting out there and running the experiments and trying to figure out what it is that creates value for customers.
Right. What are you excited about for next year? What's new next year? What do you think?
I don't know, like technology-wise, we go from one buzzword after the next. So
voice.
Yeah, so this year it's AI, right? So who knows what it is next year? And it probably doesn't run on a calendar year, so I don't even want to predict what the next buzzword
AI is H3, right? It's not there yet.
I don't know. Can I give this example? Is this shirt, right? It's actually custom made, and they do 3D modeling to figure out your measurements, and then they send you a shirt that fits really well. So now they're calling that, I don't know, you tell me. But yeah, it actually fits pretty well. But what's funny is that they're calling that app an AI app now. And I'm all like, no, it's not AI. So it's pretty funny.
Yeah. So you don't know yet what the new thing is?
No, I think I personally am just going to focus on trying to build this entrepreneurial spirit. I think it has to happen across organizations, not just in innovation silos. I think it has to happen in government. I think it has to happen in education. We're living in a new world. We're living in this digital age, and it means really our behavior has to change all across. And so
I think that's changing, right? It came out of the labs, it went into the corporates.
yeah, well, I think just generally, right, we used to be built upon the industrial age. And so the systems and the processes and the people worked as if they were part of an assembly line. Well, now we're living in the digital age. And so all of those fundamental structures in our economy and in our world, education, government, medicine, and the big corporations, I think all of this is going to change. And this is really kind of a lot of the turmoil and disruption that's in the world right now is because we're in the midst of this really big change going on.
Big change, you think? I thought you talked more about small changes. What's the big change?
The big change is moving to a digital world. We can't stop that change.
That's a big change, yeah, but it's a long-term change.
It is a long-term change. And so it also just means that we have to change as individuals. This whole concept of being able to do both the, balance the search and the execute is a change in behavior. Leaders who actually are managing teams that are working in this new world have to learn how to be mentors and have to be vulnerable and how to be empathetic. And so they have to not just manage execution the way they used to. They have a whole new set of skills that they have to learn. And again, I've said it already a couple times, it applies to education and how we teach kids, and it applies to government and how we can actually provide more value to government constituents. I think it's all changing.
So let's say a large corporate that wants to innovate, do you have some piece of advice? Where do they start?
Go create value for human beings.
That's a good way to end. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.